Wind bites, whips, burns, and I question my motivations. But not in the way you might think. I was once very motivated, and once was not very long ago, no matter how long ago it may feel. And I still feel the pull of that motivation. But I've lost track of why. I once heard a humorist cynically proclaim that every dead mountain climber was once a highly motivated person. And rather than laugh, I sneered at their short-sighted comment. But it now seems to me that my motivation caused me to lose sight of the punchline, much like I've lost sight of the trail, of my path, of the reason why. And if I had the energy now, I would offer up the laugh that joke deserves. What a bitter time to find my sense for jocularity. But at least I'll go into that frosted and warm embrace with a smirk on my face. I no longer fear the looming dark ghosts and forms of the fallen before me, no more than I am sure they do or do not truly loom there, staring at me with their vacant bony sockets and ragged tattered clothes, beating in the blinding wind. Whatever I have known and what I have learned, I give to the mountain. I offer myself freely, so that it may not take me.
Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Pathfinder 2nd Edition and the lore that surrounds them. Hello there, creatures, and welcome to another episode of Encounter This. I am one of your hosts, James, a very powerful asset kid, and with me, as always, Freeman, climber of mountains, iced, and those should probably have been reversed. Today we're going to be going through the Skulltaker on Bestiary 1, page 300. And if I'm not mistaken, there's something very special about this episode. Is that true, Mr. Freeman?
This is true. That is true. This episode is brought to you by one of our patrons, Tekale. And you might be wondering, I thought that they picked golems. That's true. But that was a reward, I think, or that they won from a charity stream.
It was.
And then they became a patron, and they're awesome. And they were all like, yo, you owe me another one. And we were like, whoops, yeah, we do. So here we are. Because we totally forgot. And this was the choice, the Skulltaker, which is very, very exciting. I didn't really know anything about this creature beforehand, so it was kind of cool to kind of dive into, sort of. It was cool and it wasn't. It was cool and it wasn't. I'll tell you why in a bit.
Okay.
But it is a really cool creature. Bestiary 1, page 300. This creature does also exist in first edition, and it is in Bestiary 5, however you want to say it.
Okay.
So there was not a lot of game lore here. So I've just, like before, just combined 1E and 2E together here to kind of fill it out. But it's pretty quick and beautiful. So in the 1E lore, however, it was actually referred to as a Saxra. It's a totally different name. Don't know why. Don't know why they changed it. Don't know why they called it a Saxra. Found no explanations at all. So,
Okay.
so from here on out, If you want to figure out, look at the 1E version, it is called a Saxor. We'll have a link to that. But from here on out, we're just going to refer to it as the Skulltaker to keep it easy. Is
Good to know.
basically a Skulltaker is basically the collective remains of mountain climbers and hikers who died of starvation and or agony on mountain peaks.
Most of them, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Judging by the look on your face, James, I think you weren't expecting that at all.
No, I had no idea what to expect coming into this. Like, I kind of expected like a Freddy Krueger-esque bogeyman kind of thing, but this is way different, and nothing about that MO says Skulltaker to me.
Really doesn't. Yeah. We'll get some thematic stuff certainly in the mechanics, but for now, I kind of want to just directly quote some of the description here because I love it. It's kind of evocative. The very flavorful description in 2E says something like, swirling down from misty peaks and through howling mountain passes like an evil wind. The Skulltaker is a terrible manifestation of the delirium and agony experienced by doomed climbers and lost trailblazers just before they met their end. End quote. So I thought that was very very flavorful, kind of conjures up the imagination quite a bit. There are a couple notes about this sort of collective awfulness. In particular, let's look at the artwork here. Kind of doesn't look like a collection in the way that I imagine in my head. I mean, there's certainly a collection of bones mixed in there, but I was thinking more of like an amalgam or something,
like the bone golem from 5e or what have you. Like
just
this kind of looks like a Dusclops for those of you who are familiar with Pokemon.
No, I didn't get that far into it. But I mean, it's still cool. I think the artwork is really neat, and it's certainly terrifying to behold if that kind of came down at you on a mountain pass.
I mean,
there is
anywhere.
Anywhere really. There is something to be said about if you are able to manage cooperation with this creature, they are considered to be a very powerful asset. In particular, just for one thing alone, and it is their knowledge. Because the collective memories of all of those who've died to form this thing in this whirling mass of death, all those memories are stored into the bones. And basically, because mountain climbers come far and wide, the knowledge, it spans many subjects across, the entirety of Galarian or what have you, or whatever world you're working in. So that alone makes it extremely valuable, not to mention the fact that they are not a low level creature. Also it's over 20 feet tall and weighs about 2 tons.
This hovering mass of bones weighs 2 tons. Okay.
It's very scary and it's very large. We do have the artwork from 1E as well, if you want to put that up. And it's pretty similar. Pretty damn similar.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool, too. It looks a little bit more like a cultist, which I'm kind of cool with. I like that. But
definitely more ritualized. And that looks like a horse skull in this one.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And both of them, really, but it's a little more obvious in this one.
Right.
I didn't really come across anything in particular that mentions said horse skull, so not sure why. I don't know who's bringing the horse to the peak of the mountain. But maybe that's why they died.
Maybe it's like a pack mule or something. But if it's 20 feet tall, that skull's got to be way bigger than a mule or a donkey or a goat or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be a goat. It's lacking the horns, but
Yeah.
Who knows?
For the listeners at home, it's essentially just like a dark cloak with a bunch of bones strapped to it. It is very like ritualistic looking. Like the bones are laid out cleanly, at least in the 1E artwork. And
they're like tied on, like purposely, not just like thrown into a big mix. I think when we get to the mechanics too, there's gonna be more that is missing from these pieces of artwork. Maybe a little bit. You gotta get a little bit in the 2E one, but like there is a sort of activeness. There's an active nature to the mechanics that would conjure up more bones, and you'll know what I mean when we get there. But honestly, that is literally it for the Pathfinder lore. It's pretty short.
That is short.
Yeah. Collective deaths form this thing. How often and how many required, don't know. But when it does, its collective sort of memories exist, and it is big and powerful. And I can't imagine why or how you would find its cooperation, but you know, there you go. Could be a thing.
Yeah.
Let your imagination soar. Now, getting into the IRL stuff, the old mythology and folklore. It's pretty clear that this is inspired by an incredibly large number of mountain climbing deaths that we have known about over many, 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 many years. Um, and I did find loads of unsubstantiated, uncredited ghost stories related to mountain deaths. I don't mean to say that in the sense that I personally do not believe in ghosts. I mean they are some of them are just so clearly just made up. Um, the first example I have here is actually kind of frustrating because so I found a story about a famous French climber who was well known, I think it was in the 90s, Elizabeth Revol, who had to make the excruciating decision to leave behind their climbing partner to save her own life. And it was I read into that, and I won't lie, my research into this mountain climbing deaths was sort of depressing. So I've bullet pointed some stuff, but I couldn't. There was a limit to what I could get into, and I cannot fathom wanting to climb a mountain and go through this that is so far beyond me. I don't get it. So it was kind of hard to read. But this very famous mountain climber, she nearly lost her fingers and one of her feet to frostbite. And the story that I came across was about how she had basically thought she had met an old wrinkled woman on the mountain who offered her warm tea in exchange for her shoes, and she agreed, and woke up with a frozen foot and nearly lost her foot. However, I found absolutely no evidence of the story anywhere other than this one spot. I found it nothing. I didn't find it on the wiki page related to this person. I didn't find it in anything about the book that I think she had written or a memoir or what have you. I found absolutely nothing about this story, this supposed ghost story, except for on the magazine website climbing.com as recently as 2022. They just, as far as I can tell, just made it up. And this was like in the 90s this happened. So they just invented it for what? I don't know, sensational sake, I guess. I found that kind of frustrating because it really, like, to me, is a pretty big departure away from like a very serious incident. And I don't know, it bothered me. In any case, there are loads of other like stories and stuff that come down all kinds of different like avenues. But I honestly can say that I honestly didn't find any folklore or mythology related to mountain ghosts based on deaths. I found nothing other than reports of climbers claiming this and that, or people claiming them on behalf of said climbers and whatnot. And a lot of that is, of course, attributed to things like altitude sickness and lack of oxygen and all kinds of different factors that weigh into those situations.
Yeah, even it's theorized that even severe hypothermia can cause you to like actually proper hallucinate.
Yeah.
And just to set the record straight, this happened in January of 2018. So,
the Elizabeth Revol?
Yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, I thought it was way earlier than that.
Yeah.
Well, she's climbed lots of mountains, I believe. So I could have got it mixed up. Yeah.
Yeah. This is her Nanga Parbat climb with Tomas Makowicz. And she weighed just 45 kilos when the rescue team managed to excavate her.
They just executed her.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a dark turn. There's your ghost story. So all kinds of stories. So low oxygen environments, temperatures far below freezing, complete lack of sleep, altitude sickness, like I said. There are a few claims, and kind of, I don't know if I want to call them fun facts, but I did, like I said, I bullet pointed a couple things here. There was a famous Sherpa, Pemba Dorji from Nepal, who claims to have been the fastest to summit Everest in 8 hours and 10 minutes. claims to have seen black
Jesus.
shadows wandering the summit and begging for food, believing them to be the restless spirits of those who died on the mountain that will forever linger until they are given appropriate funeral rites. I didn't find much on that either, just like a couple small little like kind of fantastical articles claiming that said Sherpa claimed this.
We're not even. I mean, I'm prepared to be corrected, but I don't even know if there's a record of Dorji actually climbing Everest.
It's
I think
disputed.
I think it's just a claim.
It is disputed. Nepal
Yeah.
does like use it for tourism, and they definitely like back it, the government and the climbing kind of the expedition companies, whatever. But yeah, as far as I know, it is still quite disputed. There are bodies, like many unidentified bodies all over Everest itself.
Oh yeah.
In particular,
Oh yeah. Hundreds.
there are more dangerous climbs than Everest, but Everest, of course, is one of the most famous. So I kind of focus some of my examples here on Everest because it's most familiar, and I really got into a lot of like statistics that were just not confirmed. They there was no reliable sources and stuff like that. So I kind of struggled with this. With anything that was like, I was trying to find something true for God's sake, and I just couldn't.
I remember going through this when I did Yetis way back in the day, and it is very difficult to find reliable testimony from the top of a mountain because you're either one of the people who were there, or you're one of the people who talked to one of the people who were there.
Yeah. So I mean, as recently as 2017, there were actually 4 bodies that were found together in a tent near the Everest base camp, but no climbing agency had reported anyone missing. So no one's quite sure who they were, where they came from, and how they died. There's a famous corpse known as Green Boots, who is not officially identified, but it is strongly believed to be an Indian climber named Tsawang Paljor, something like that. And his body served as a literal landmark along the main northeast ridge. He died in 1996, but the body was removed in 2014. So a landmark for 8 years. Or 8 years.
I mean, it's hard enough to get 2 people in gear up there. Imagine trying to carry somebody down. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It makes sense that they just leave them up there. Like, what else are you supposed to do? The altitude is so high that you can't even get like a chopper up there or something. So
it's wild. Yeah. This is kind of a fun story that I'm a little bit worried I'm gonna sound a bit patronizing here, but it just makes me laugh. I'm just gonna say it. So a local resident of the Himalayan village of Benmi, one Mohan Singh, claimed to be visited by a ghost while he was out chopping wood. A strange man approached him and asked why he was chopping the wood. The sky turned black and the man reached for him, but his hand went straight through. And he also kept changing size, anywhere from the size of 9 feet tall to the size of a chicken. And after escaping the strange man, Singh found he had a very intense fever. And he believed that a local Hindu priest was required to perform a special exorcism involving slaughtering a goat in order to get rid of the fever. Believing that the ghost caused the fever. I'm pretty sure it's the other way around. Be my guess is the fever caused the hallucination.
Yeah,
but
who are we to say?
Right. So now you understand my content warning there. Let's move on.
Right.
The these stories go on and on and on. Of course, like there are loads of them, and very few of them are interesting or have much detail. And you can imagine Yetis get mixed in very much, some sort of strange mountain creature that no one can find or discover or describe properly. Mount Everest, of course, being the most famous mountain. I did look at some of the statistics on that, and there have been at least 331 people that have died climbing it. There are definitely more, though. And 2023, as of this recording, the season is usually between April and May, apparently, for climbing. And it has actually been one of the deadliest years. There were 17 deaths this year on Everest, despite whatever advances and how much people understand how and where to climb. 17 deaths. The average death over the previous 30 years, from 1993 to 2022, was 6.2 per year. So this is nearly triple that.
Global warming,
which is pretty
just
wild.
makes unpredictable weather patterns.
I didn't even think of that. That's a good
Yeah,
point. That's a good
I mean,
point.
look at
Yeah.
us. We're still feeling the effects of an El Nino from 5 years ago.
It's bonkers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hell of a fact I found there. There are on like the wiki pages and stuff. There's a lot of like kind of built-in links. Oh, this many decimal, like little sub pages and stuff. But there was one that had like a pretty fairly comprehensive not chart, table of like who died, what day they died, who they were climbing with, yada yada yada.
I mean, it's only as tables like that can only be as good as the reporting, because you know that there are people who do not climb this legally, appropriately, or with permission. You know, people just show up and they go, and it happens all the time.
Oh yeah. So with all that, and the depressing amount of research, there are actually far more successful summits than deaths at the end of the day. I didn't really get an exact number of how many successful summits, but however many there are compared to the deaths, like climbing a mountain is just brutal, impressive, and I quite frankly find it to be psychotic. I cannot understand why someone would want to do it and take that risk to achieve what exactly. I don't know. I'm sure it's personal, but I don't get it. The only positive stories I can find just were barely positive to me, and like I said, the records are just all over the place. Yeah, I just it's awful. It's brutal. It's just brutal. Don't go down the road. I don't recommend. Thanks to Tekale. No,
yeah,
but I just found it pretty humbling, I guess, at the end of the day, to like look into that and go, wow, this is I knew it would be hard, but like, just the results are bonkers.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's just so physically and mentally demanding. To even attempt it makes you one of the, realistically, at least in my opinion, one of the most one of the top athletes in the world. Like, it is it's so incredibly demanding. I've done like small climbs, like free climbing and bouldering and stuff like that, and that's about where my interest ends. And like the shape I had to be in to even just do some of that shit was wild. And when I was doing some of this stuff, I was a nationally ranked swimmer. Like, but
right,
that was all dexterity, to borrow the parlance, not really strength. So
right,
like crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. Like physically impressive, demanding, and I don't know, listeners, maybe phone in and let us know. What do you think? Climbing a mountain, courageous or foolhardy?
I mean,
the deal?
It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Not mutually exclusive.
No,
per se.
Not ever are they mutually exclusive, unless you don't have a choice. Like if you're climbing a mountain
one thing's
because
for sure,
you have to.
Yeah. My baseline disinterest in it is that it involves so much snow, and I really, really hate snow. I hate it. So
I don't even like walking uphill. Did the grouse grind once? I'm good.
Yeah, I did it once too. It was it was something. Never craved going back, I guess, but
no.
But yeah, I mean, no real lore inspiration, sadly. Some crazy facts, but I think the meat of this creature is going to be the mechanics, and I think we get some pretty cool stuff ahead of us. So why don't we go there?
All right, we're gonna head on over to the garage.
Yeah, let's talk about a brutality that makes us happy. The mechanics. This is a level 18 creature. So
that is
we've
gone way higher than I expected.
Yeah, I know, right? For something with so little lore.
We cannot find a middling creature to save our lives, apparently.
We're struggling. Level 18, AC of 42, HP 300. It is a huge creature. Current alignment, neutral evil. And traits undead, as you can imagine.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Religion 40 to identify, unspecified lore at 38, specific lore 35, perception 33. It does have a land speed of 30 feet, although no legs to see. Perhaps if you're
Hover,
not
I
getting
guess.
prone. And does have a 60-foot fly speed though. So it is really big and it moves pretty quick.
No legs,
It
but
speaks.
femurs for days.
Yeah. Femurs for days. Look at the length of that creature's stride. it's like it's got 6 femurs on each leg.
Just strapped to its torso.
Yeah. Speaks Necral, as you can imagine, but it also speaks skeletal lore languages, which we'll get to in a moment.
Okay. You've piqued my interest officially.
Yes. It's not as crazy interesting as you might expect, or maybe it is. Well, we'll see. It does have dark vision and true seeing. As you can imagine, true seeing comes from a constant spell, which we've covered before, but I feel I don't remember if we missed a little something about it, but I'm gonna go over it when we get there. Attributes, we're looking at a strength of 8, dex of 6, con of 6, intelligence of 2, wisdom of 8, and charisma of 7. It's got a big old boost to acrobatics at 34, intimidation at 35, religion at 30, stealth at 32, and skeletal lore at 30. Again, we'll cover a little more. Not very often. Actually, I guess it is a little more often than we're used to that you see a creature with a lore skill, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, you'll see how it could come in handy, especially if you find a way to like get this thing on your side or get a favor out of it or something like that, because it's got something to use that on. Fortitude's its lowest save at 31, reflex and will 33 and 35 following up. It is resistant to piercing and slashing, both at 15. And it is immune to cold, death effects, diseased, paralyzed, poison, and unconscious.
Those all
+1
come
to
from
all
the skeletal
saves.
trait, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Those
Or
are
undead,
pretty.
Sorry.
Yeah, pretty stock standard for undead stuff. But I mean, as we've learned, especially in Stemming the Tide, not all undead just have a blanket immunities per se. I think there's a lot that they do share across the board, but it does vary quite a bit. Like,
I thought the undead
mindless
trait
undead
gave some of this stuff.
No, that is kind of in your head holding over from money at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because like a mindless undead would be immune to mental effects, but one that does have some.
Well, that would be the
mindless
mindless trait,
right?
And then I thought the undead trait gave the cold death effects immunity, that kind of thing. But okay.
Yeah, I don't think it does in particular. No, the only thing undead trait gives you is basically related to the positive negative energy and how it affects you. Yeah, so
gotcha.
Every undead may or may not. Yeah, it's a tough one. Every undead may or may not have its own set of immunities and weaknesses and all this other. So always keep that in mind when you're running undead. It's not the same as it used to be. Last bit of stat work here is a +1 to all saves versus positive. So that thing that would typically be its weakness, it's got a little bit of boost to it. It doesn't have any weaknesses. There's no weaknesses to speak of. So it's a tough cookie, looks like.
Yeah, AC 42 +30 to everything, and then +1 to saves versus positive damage, which is your heal spells, your divine lance.
Yeah, we've yet to have the privilege of properly fighting at that level. So, I mean, it's hard to get our heads around a little bit. We can imagine to a degree, for sure. But
next one shot, level 20.
Let's do it. I can't even play a level 8 character. I'm terrible.
I feel you. After our live stream on Sunday, I feel the same way.
It's tough, yeah. Let's talk about skeletal lore. So skeletal lore is a divination and divine sort of ability that it has. Basically, the Skulltaker taps into the memories of the creatures that make up its body, as you'd expect, and giving it the skeletal lore skill, which it can use to recall knowledge of any kind. So you're kind of getting into that bardic lore kind of thing. It can just cover whatever it wants. Cool. In addition, it can speak and understand all languages known by the creatures whose bones make up its body, typically including common and the regional language of the Skulltaker's home region. But then, of course, it's up to you to expand on that. So realistically, they're kind of putting a little homework into the GMC here to decide what languages it speaks. and maybe that the type of mountain and how popular it is to climb and where it exists will dictate that. Don't get too crazy about it. If you're feeling real lazy, just let it speak all languages. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Or just
Maybe
pick
just
all
like
your
remove the
local
rare
languages
ones or something. Yeah, yeah.
Speaks bugbear and Tian. Done.
Yeah. Definitely speaks Yeti. 100% speaks Yeti.
God, I hope that's not a language in this fucking system.
The skeletal lore is also can be used as the primary skill check for the legend lore ritual, and it can cast legend lore without a secondary caster, so it has this ability to do legend lore on its own and use lore skill instead, which is pretty good. Legend lore is kind of a famous spell from definitely even from D&D. I don't remember much about it. I remember it being a little bit confusing when I first looked at it when we were first starting out. Didn't really understand because I didn't really understand the whole flow of the game and stuff. But I think I understand a little bit better now. But it's been a while since I looked at it. But it is one of those big spells that's gone from a spell slot to like it's a ritual in 2B. One of the sort of famous ones that are like, okay, we don't really need a spell slot for this so much because it's a bit more of a time-consuming process, and kind of like what they did with Wish, right? Or what they're doing with Wish coming up.
Yeah, rituals were tough when we were first starting out. I mean, they're not easy now, but you know, we're at least getting the hang of them to a degree.
Yeah, they're just not something you tend to use very often unless you have a particular one for a particular kind of campaign or story flow that calls for it. But let's get into what this thing can do in le combat.
I'm very concerned.
Well, it can jaws attack you, which I don't know, maybe is better as a headbutt given that skull. But it's a 3d10 plus 14 piercing, plus 3d6 negative, and energy drain. Also,
cool.
It has the deadly 2d12 trait. So if it crits, you're adding another 2d12 on top of doubling all previous damage. It doesn't
Today I learned there's a deadly
attack.
2d12 trait.
Yeah. Shit gets crazy at high level. It's a 10-foot reach on that. And I'll cover the claw real quick as well. Claw attack, very similar. 3d6 instead of 10 plus 14 piercing. Plus 3d6. Actually, that should be slashing, I think. Plus 3d6 negative and energy drain. Also has the deadly 2d12 trait. This one's agile, though, and has a reach of 15 feet instead of 10. And for both, the energy drain means that you have to succeed a DC 40 fortitude save or become drained 2 and doomed 1.
Jesus Christ.
Drained 2 just sort of affects all stats and like can't. And I think you reduce it like, you know, 1 at a time per rest or something like that. Doomed 1 just straight up reduces the amount of dying condition values you can have before you die. So if you're normally at dying 4, you die, and now it's dying 3. And if you get doomed 2, and now it's dying 2 that you die, so on and so forth.
Yeah, doomed is scary. It's right up there with wounded.
Yeah, it kind of works in the opposite direction as wounded, basically. It's like this sort of counter inverse of the same mechanic in a way.
That's so
and it's terrifying. Right? They can stack and it's brutal. Yeah. So very, very, very scary. It also has a range attack. It's a bone javelin, which I assume it just like pulls one of its own bones out, just tosses it. It's a plus 33 to hit, 3d6 plus 6 piercing, plus 3d6 negative, 100-foot range. But that's it.
That's so far.
Yeah. 100-foot thrown range. No big deal. So that's fun. Let's talk about some other actions it has, or some other little tidbits. It does have another single action thing called Splintered Ground. So Skulltaker basically causes splintered bones to erupt from all surfaces in a 100-foot emanation, except for surfaces of worked stone. And a creature moving through the bones takes 10 piercing damage and 10 negative damage for every 5 feet that they move. At this point, I would assume flying is maybe not readily available, but quite available to most of the party, if not some of the party, and you can kind of avoid that to a degree.
Is fly communal still a spell?
I don't know. Don't know. Maybe a heightened version could offer you something. I know there's probably more spells out there that actually offer some flying options, but that's not all. The first time each round a creature takes piercing damage from these splintered bones. No, it's never enough. The first time each round a creature takes piercing damage from these splintered bones, it must succeed a reflex save or also take a minus 10-foot circumstance penalty to all speeds for 10 minutes. Or a 15-foot penalty for 24 hours on a critical failure. So when you move, you hurt, and also you move very slowly. The bones remain in place until the Skulltaker uses the action again, or the bones are manually removed, which takes about 10 minutes for each 5-foot square.
So and this is just a one action thing that it can fucking do whenever it wants.
One action.
There's no like flurry trade or anything on it.
Welcome to my neighborhood. Bam, bones everywhere. So Jesus you see now Christ. The artwork doesn't really do justice to the amount of bones involved. They could just put it all over the place. And
I have no concept of high level play apparently, because this just seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like we need to, like, just for research purposes at this point, I honestly believe that you and I need to play in a high level game, because this seems broken, like just
bonkers,
beyond broken, like more broken than 1E broken.
Yeah. But apparently it's possibly, I mean, as always, it comes down to, to a degree, party makeup, but also like situation, terrain, what's the map look like, what's available to you, how limited are you, and what's in your repertoire. It's really, I'm with you though. Like I agree. We kind of need to do it for our own sake and for the sake of the show, because it's like a kind of mind-boggling. How do you fight this
even
thing?
If we just get even if you and I just put together like 2 characters each, cleric, rogue, and fighter, summoner, or some shit like that, and we each play 2 characters, and we just do a high level combat. Like we can stream it or whatever on YouTube, but even if we just do a high level combat, just so I can wrap my head around, like 100 feet, 6d6 plus 6 piercing, and a plus 33 to hit, like.
Well, but wait, there's more.
Oh,
because if you get in close, it's got a 10-foot aura. Oh yeah, it's got a 10-foot aura called Shard Storm, in which a cloud of bone shards surrounds the Skulltaker, and when a creature moves into the emanation or begins its turn there, the Shard Storm attempts to counteract any death ward effect on the creature with a plus 30 counteract modifier, and then deals 46 slashing and 46 negative damage to the creature with a DC 40 basic or reflex save. So you take damage, and if you happen to be preparing yourself against death effects, it tries to counteract that the moment you're within 10 feet of it. Oh, like, wait, there's more. Oh, wait, there's more. It's got an ability called Bone Taker. So if a creature dies within 60 feet of the Skulltaker, like dies, the Skulltaker draws a portion of the creature's bones into its Shard Storm, and the creature must succeed a DC 40 will save or rise as a skeletal champion for 1d4 rounds that is controlled by the Skulltaker.
As somebody who's fought alongside a skeletal champion a lot, I can tell you that that's not particularly frightening.
It's not a lovely. Because
I mean, there's still cannon fodder. There's still those like little bullshit enemies, and you have technically, like, this is a death spiral in spades, because not only have you lost a PC, but they've gained an ally. So you need to avoid this at all costs. Like, just losing a PC is a death spiral, because that's not how the action economy works.
Yeah.
Losing a PC and them gaining an ally?
Bad news bears. Yeah.
That is what, that is when you retreat. Like, I'm not often going to be the one who sounds the horn for get out of there, at least to our listeners. But if this happens, if somebody follows this Bone Taker ability, you need to leave.
Yeah. Like, just go. It ain't worth
it. I just do not understand. Holy shit.
So let's talk about its spells, because it's got spells.
I mean, we know it's got true seeing.
It's got true seeing. The thing I wanted to cover on that I couldn't remember if we covered before or not, but true seeing does require a secret counteract check, so they don't just get to see through the stuff, even though it's a constant spell. The moment
Okay.
they're, confronted with something like that, you have that there's a secret check happening behind the scenes. So GM's trying to forget that. And it does give an example of like it sees through it, but it doesn't change anything. So a good example is a creature that's like polymorphed in some way, such as a druid in an animal form or something. If it succeeds, it sees the true form, but it does not do anything to end the polymorph spell. So it can see it for what it is, but it does not like change what's happening in the form of that creature.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think we talked about that
hmm.
because it is just a sight. Like it is.
Yeah.
It acts just like true seeing in 1E essentially,
Mhm.
except that this time there's a counteract check. You don't just do it.
Right. Now, legend lore. Let's talk about that. It's basically it takes a full day to cast. It's got
This thing's got
gold.
time.
Yeah, it's got a gold cost of 300. It usually requires 2 secondary casters. It is a 7th level ritual. Um, Primary check is usually occultism with a at least trained master or proficiency of master. So obviously this creature can do it on its own with its skeletal lore instead. You basically attempt to learn useful legends about a particular subject, and it's got to be like a person, place, or a thing. The subject, if the subject is present, you can increase the degree of success of the primary skill check. And if you only have vague information about the subject, attempting a ritual, the degree of success is decreased. So that's really up to how much you want to take a risk of, like, doing this early on, but without enough knowledge, and the GM has to sort of determine that if enough is enough. The basically and these sort of modifiers will actually cancel each other out if the subject is present with little to no baseline information. So just the presence alone actually kind of cancels it out, which can be pretty significant. But like a regular success is, you basically the ritual ends up like causing whoever's casting, I think, to recite mysterious legends, tales, and lore about the subject over the course of an hour after the ritual has ended. And it provides useful information for further inquiry, but it's generally incomplete or enigmatic, as is the nature of legends, as it says. If you fail, you just fail to learn anything. If you critically fail, your mind becomes lost in the past. You can't sense or respond to anything in the present for 1 week, except for performing necessities like breathing and sleeping. When you return, however, you can retrain one of your skills into a lore based on the knowledge of the past you were uncontrollably viewing, which is wild. The critical success.
Yeah, again, this thing's got nothing but time.
Yeah, is pretty similar to the regular success. Sort of reciting all those legends over an hour. The information is mostly coherent, emphasizing more accurate and useful legends over those exaggerated over time. So it's just like you just get more and more accuracy, essentially. So again, it's kind of part of that lore that this creature has like this tremendous amount of knowledge, and it can be very useful if you can kind of get it on your side. How you go about that, I think this creature is really open in that way. It's like, it feels like this really terrifying version of the Kieran when we covered that creature, where we were convinced that this is a non-competitive creature, but you want it on your side, and it can be very, very helpful as this sort of like, story vehicle. This creature, I guess could be the same, but you almost
feels
want
like the
to see
ghost
it
of
in
Christmas
combat.
Past.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of almost want to see it in combat, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's certainly not a pleasant creature to be around per se. And with that, we have one final thing to cover, and it is the other spells that it has. So we've covered the constant spell of true seeing which is at level 6.
Well, is there a specific DC for that ritual?
DC 40.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they only have to roll a fucking 10.
Basically.
Cool. 45% chance of success.
They also have 3 level 8 spells, or rank 8, I guess we could say now. Spells
is that the official terminology? Rank?
That's the official new terminology. Yeah.
Fix that level, already, Paizo.
Spell rank.
That is not good. That is not a good.
I always wanted to go for tier, and I know I've said it before. Spell tier, but
it's better than rank.
I'm just happy they're breaking away from spell level. I'm just so happy. I don't care what they chose.
Yeah, that's fair.
So they have 2 castings of each of the following. Punishing Winds, 3 action cast, 30-foot radius, 100-foot cylinder, can cast from a range of 100 feet. Sustained up to a minute.
Does it
Winds
specify what direction that cylinder goes in?
No, I think
because one would assume it's vertical.
Vertical,
but
yes.
It is pretty easy to knock a cylinder on its side and make it horizontal.
Yeah, I think the assumption usually follows that of like because you're using a flat map, you know, your radius is automatically calculated, you know, vertically or horizontally on the map, so the cylinder must be. But I mean, I guess that's GM discretion, sort of. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe we'll see. Let's see if the spell says more on it. Maybe that clarifies.
Okay.
But violent winds and powerful downdraft fill the area, forming a cyclone. All flying creatures in the area descend 40 feet. The entire area is greater difficult terrain for flying creatures and difficult terrain for creatures on the ground or climbing. Any creature that ends its turn flying within the area descends 20 feet. Any creature pushed into a surface by the spell's winds takes bludgeoning damage as though it had fallen. The squares of the outside vertical edges of the cylinder prevent creatures from leaving. So I guess that
okay. So it is vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't actually expect it to, but
it's vertical. Yeah.
The squares are greater difficult terrain, and a creature attempting to push through must succeed an athletics check or acrobatics check to maneuver in flight against the spell DC to get through. A creature that falls or fails ends its current action but can try again. I feel like I just read a whole bunch of sentences for. I mean, I know the spell is probably quite useful, but I was not very interested in what I was reading.
I hear you. So my thing here is that this is what dissuades flyers from getting over the splintered ground.
100%. Absolutely. It is in and of itself this evil wind of collective dead. Like, you know, it's coming down and it's windy and it's crazy and it doesn't want you to walk around it, and it definitely doesn't want you to fly around it either. So that is definitely why that is there. No doubt about it. I've also got something called Horrid Wilting.
I don't know this one either.
Really fun. 2 actions. Range of 500 feet, because, you know, 100 feet's too little. Targets.
I can excuse the ranges because we're assuming that it's firing downhill.
Basically, yeah. It targets any number of living creatures.
Sorry, what?
So, yeah, that's no big deal.
Whole Might as well just say targets the party.
Yeah. Basic fortitude save. You pull the moisture from the target's bodies, dealing 10d10 negative damage. Creatures made of water, such as water elementals, and plant creatures use the outcome for one degree of success worse than the resulting of their saving throw. Creatures whose bodies contain no significant moisture, such as earth elementals, are immune, which is kind of cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah. And you can heighten this up to 2 more times from rank 9 and 10 to add an additional 1d10 damage.
So it goes up to 12d10. All right.
Yes. Yeah. But it's a lot of targets.
Yeah. It's also arcane and primal, which I didn't expect. Something about this says divine to me, but
right.
The primal makes sense. The arcane is a little weird.
Oh, that is odd, actually, because this is technically a divine innate spellcaster. Huh. So I wonder if that was an oversight. It's very interesting. It does come from the undead bloodline for sorcerers. It is on the elemental spell list. But yeah, it is necromantic, but that's, you know, that doesn't really make a difference. Interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Let me just double check I'm right that it's a divine caster, because you never know. I might have made a mistake in my notes here. Divine innate spells.
Yeah, that was the first thing I checked was its okay.
Yeah. Well, food for thought. Maybe there's something else that should go into that slot. One final thing. Finger of Death. Because this thing wants to kill you real bad, apparently. and turn you into a skeletal
I guess
champion.
so.
This does have the death effect or death trait to it. So you can, I'm not actually 100% sure what you can do, but obviously there are resistances to death effects that you can conjure up, which again, this thing will try to counteract if it can. But this only has a range of 30 feet, so you got to get pretty close. It only targets one living creature. It is a basic fortitude
Good.
save. But you point your finger toward a target and speak a word of slaying. You deal 70 negative damage to the target, flat 70. If the damage,
Love
basic
that.
fortitude, of course. If the damage from the finger of death will reduce the target to 0 hit points, they die instantly.
Yeah, that's what that death trait is. So
Yeah.
anything with the death trait, if it reduces them to 0 points, they are gone.
They are gone. Now, this is actually a level 7 spell, rank 7 spell. They have it at rank 8, and which means it's actually doing 80 damage for this creature. So it's adding
Excellent.
10 per heightened, per heightened rank.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good thing it's a basic fortitude save.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah.
If
you critically fail that, you're taking 160 damage.
that's what I was going to say is I'm kind of surprised that this doesn't have the incapacitation trait on it, just because this will take shit out of the game.
I'm guessing here, but I would be willing to bet that incapacitation and death traits don't ever go on the same thing. You get one over the other, basically.
You're probably right, and we probably swap incapacitation out at a certain level because it just at some point it doesn't become useful. Like maybe rank 6 or something like that. They just no longer have incapacitation traits. And I can see with a rank 7 spell it not being particularly valuable. Like you've got to be 14th level to even get this. So
yeah, something like that.
Maybe it's a balancing thing. I don't know.
I mean, incapacitation in theory should be. It will come into account no matter what level your party is at, because it kind of calculates based on your target level, and so like blindness never really becomes ineffective at level 18 or something like that, right? Because it's just the incapacitation trait keeps it balanced.
Oh yeah,
theory, right?
So I was thinking the other side of the coin. So at a certain level, like let's say 11,
you just stop getting
chances are
things.
You're never going to be double the level.
Oh right. Yeah. Well, I guess what it comes down to is that usually you don't use incapacitation spells and effects against creatures like a single target battle, because for a fact that they aren't.
Yeah.
So usually when you're fighting multiple enemies, you have a higher chance. So that remains true from level 1 to 20 in theory. You're not suddenly just at level 14 only fighting single target battles, right? So it still has
right. Yeah. I'm just saying, like at a certain level, like rank 8, like let's say rank 7 spells. Traditionally, you're going to be getting those at level 14. Right. I don't know how many CR 25 creatures you're going to be casting spells on, because that's when the incapacitation trait comes in. Is double the level or exceeds double the level.
Well, no, it exceeds double the spell level, not your level. So
right.
It's
so
more than double. So if you are level
right.
14 and you're casting a level 7 spell, if the creature is level 15, then incapacitation comes into play. If it's the same level or lower than you, then it's effective.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't need. Yeah. You don't. You're doubling the wrong number.
Right.
Effectively.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the creature level has to match the spell rank.
Right.
Or double the spell
rank.
Double
the spell rank. Yeah.
Double the spell rank.
But still, at a point, there will be diminishing returns. Like rank 8, how many creatures are you going to be fighting that are creature rating?
Well, that's just it. It really depends on the campaign. I think that's the baseline design of that trait, is that it works all the way through, assuming that you're having dynamic encounters through your whole campaign from 1 to 20, not just shifting away from creatures being lower than the party level. It can be effective the whole way through.
And I guess it is, because I just found a rank 8 spell that has the incapacitation trait.
There you go. Yeah, it's a thing.
Huh.
It's a thing.
Oh, and there's a rank.
Just don't use it. Just don't use them on your big bad, unless you want to roll the gamble of them rolling a natural one, and the best you get is the failure effect. Even then you still might get a success depending how big their save is. But it's a big gamble on that single target BPEG battle. But otherwise, on those multiple ones, you could really take out a single component or
Oh,
enemy
yeah.
to a
Great for
encounter, and
minions.
that can be massive. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
again,
minions,
we learned
oh,
that in the live stream like
yeah.
3 days ago.
Yeah, yeah,
For the
that's
listeners,
right.
this would be like 4 months ago on youtube.com
Yeah.
at Uncharted No. We did a live stream of Mark of the Mantis, if you're unaware.
Mhm.
It's, yeah, we're filming this like literally the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's the Skulltaker. All kinds of goodies in that stat block.
Yeah.
I love Finger of Death. It's so crazy. I don't. It would be nice to have some more lore to this creature. I'd say, but I guess it's kind of a blank slate in a way. How you end up using it, like I actually imagine like Tarbath on like the Lich's armies, with a few of these on his side, like leading the armies or some shit. The legend lore might be useful, maybe not, but like just waltzing into a battlefield and going bones, just like calling it a day,
Yeah.
and just watching shit struggle to reach the armies, and like by the time they arrive, they're just shredded. It's a pretty terrifying creature, I think, on a grand scale. But I don't know if there's anything in particular I would like to change. I guess re-looking at that one spell that's not on the divine spell list, kind of maybe reconsider something there if you want, or just let it slide. It's still kind of a fun spell. Kind of fits the theme enough in a way, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, beyond that, I'm reasonably happy with it. I think writing some extra lore to fit your game and kind of fit certainly the story you're telling is what you need to do the most homework on. But yeah. I kind of like this thing.
I like it too. My only concern is, I mean, obviously I haven't experienced high level combat in 2E, so I would be crazy to suggest any changes to the stat block because they're just so far outside of my comfort zone. I like that they're like lore wise limited to specific geography of like mountains and peaks and stuff like that. Sure. I really dig that. So I'm going to take the homebrew in a different direction. I like the idea of this being a patron for a PC, be it a witch or a sorcerer. So your backstory is you climbed a fucking mountain to get on this thing's good side, and it just gave you like the undead bloodline or whatever the sorcerer bloodlines are. Or it became your witch's patron or something like that.
That is a really cool idea, because I don't think it would work so much for the sorcerer, but it could work for an oracle, perhaps. It's been a while since I looked at oracle, but yeah, they are divine spellcasters themselves, and kind of have like a witch, which is focused on the occult, kind of have this sort of mysterious source that is not necessarily like known or whatever, but more based on themes. So that could be really cool. Just kind of pulling up the the witch, like the winter witch could be kind of an interesting one to have this as a patron.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, is the winter witch. And I think there is something you could probably do as a PC to give yourself the undead bloodline. Like maybe it takes a bone from you and gives you one back. So like,
sure, yeah,
it removes your left hand
and
gives you, gives you your own hand, and that's how you get the power of this Skulltaker.
Yeah. Because I guess there's something to be said about the bloodline. I think most people roll with the fact that it's like, oh, it skipped a few generations and I suddenly had these powers, and they go for that mysterious approach, like Tulok from Stemming Aside. Yeah. But it's got to start somewhere, right? So maybe you're the first.
Why not start with you?
Why not? That's actually pretty fun. I like that.
So one of the characters in the X-Men universe is Mr. Sinister. I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Oh yeah.
So they were 18th century geneticists. Who became so prolific at like dealing with the mutant gene that they started taking it from mutants and putting them into themselves, so they became a mutant. So I like just that idea. Cool. Like you hunt down this Skulltaker, take a couple of bones and just replace one of your ribs with it, or your foot, or some shit like that, or and that's how you get the undead bloodline, or something along those lines, or maybe you're a reanimated skeleton that this thing brought back to life, that was galvanized back, and that's, you're an undead sorcerer who also has the skeleton archetype or something like that. Like that could be kind of cool too.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and so just pulling up oracles too. Like so their thing is they have mysteries, and I think there's two here. I can quickly look at that. I think fit. One's called Ancestors.
Yeah, I love that one.
Right, and so you could probably kind of, even if you have to kind of like sort of shift it a little bit, maybe thematically, like you can get a feed into the ancestors of like I would assume it kind of leads into your own ancestors, but maybe it's the ancestors of the thing that bestows its power upon you. So this sort of like weird amalgamation of these bodies and stuff. But there's also the bones mystery, which is very apt, giving you the curse of living death. So that's probably the most appropriate. And there's actually a lore mystery as well, which maybe would fit.
So on that topic, so there's a psychic that I'm interested in. It's the only one that interests me at all. It's called the Infinite Eye.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you gained the Infinite Eye by critically failing a legend lore ritual.
That would be great. That would be great. That being said, it's you would have to be the one casting it, I guess, not the Skulltaker. So maybe you have to like play with that a bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, just like as a concept, like as soon as I heard legend lore, that's immediately what I thought. I was like, shit, that's how my psychic became psychic. They critically failed the legend lore and got stuck in the past for so long that their body like emaciated to the point where you have to start at level 1 again to rebuild yourself back up. But you've got this high intelligence from living in a distant time and place.
Cool. What's it called again?
The Infinite Eye. It's from the Dark Archive.
The Dark Archive. Is that like what part of the psychic is that? Is that the conscious mind?
Conscious mind.
Conscious minds. Okay. Really? Oh, the Infinite Eye. Yeah, look at that. And there's a subconscious mind on lore, I think.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Gathered lore. Yeah.
I don't know how much the build works, but I think that could be a really cool build in. Yeah.
Yeah. Total like somewhat side part there. That's really cool. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, there's your party intro one shot. Is you got to go get the psychic back from the past.
You attempted the legend or like to start this campaign to try and find a mystery, and you did it too early. It'd be really cool actually. Like you've the town or whatever scrounged to find the details on how to perform this ritual, and you do it too early, which causes one player to like when you first start, they're like in a week-long coma, and then they wake up and they suddenly are a psychic because of these things.
Or that's your backup character. So you start with this character, fail the legend lore, conspire with your GM to just fail it, like just roll private, and they tell you fail it, and then you come in with another character later on, and then that character becomes your psychic backup or something like that. That could be really cool. Just like the real fake out and then the reversal.
Yeah. That would be super cool. Try to find like the original class as being like something that like works well as an archetype into the psychic or whatever, right? And you can kind of combine them and continue forward. That would be really neat.
Yeah, like a thaumaturge or something.
Yeah. Just double down on the Dark Archive.
Yeah, por qué no?
Why not? Yeah, cool. Wow, lots of cool ideas spawned from this creature, that's for sure. Really
high level and skeletons. That's kind of my jam.
Yeah, right. There's something about like I love and I'm fascinated by like these death effect creatures, things that really want to like kill you and bring you closer to death, and it's terrifying. I'm actually scared to run them sometimes because I get scared to kill characters. I like it, but I'm like not bloodthirsty. I'm like oh, I want it to be a good moment, and I've said it many times. I love an unceremonious one as well. But like that finger of death, just like pointing the finger and boom, someone's dead. Like, whew, it's rough,
Yeah.
This battle has to be really important for that to be something that I would be comfortable using. And this brings to mind something that I don't know when or if I'll cover it, but I think I will. There are stat blocks in 2e for what's called a lesser death, and connected to that, a Grim Reaper, and they are brutal.
I believe it.
And I would really love to cover them sometime.
The death was brutal in 5e, so like I don't know if it was ever released as a creature, but it's one of the cards in the deck of many things is death, and you draw it and you essentially have to fight death. Like it is real difficult.
It's amazing. Yeah, I remember reading the Lesser Death and just being like mind boggled, like this is brutal. I feel like it's like a level 15 creature or something like that. And I was like, this is a PC killer big time, you know. And then there's the Grim Reaper on top of it. So yeah, I hope to cover one of those or both of those someday for sure, because I think they're really fun.
Yeah. Excellent.
But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Hands washed. Of this creature now.
If you like this, you can find us over at patreon.com/unchartednorth. $5 a month will get you a handwritten thank you letter, and for $10 a month you can suggest a creature like this very episode. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure our scrolling socials have been wrong this whole time because, like I said, we're recording this back in August and we are on the verge of sunsetting our Encounter This socials. I still have not gotten a firm date of when that's going to happen. But you can find all of our links over at, I believe it's unchartednorth.com/links, or the accurate ones will be in the description below. There'll be all of our Uncharted North links, which will be Uncharted No, and that's on all your major platforms, including Threads and Twitter, if Twitter still exists by the time this is released. If you like our logo or our style, you can head over to unchartednorth.com/shop. That's a direct link to our Teespring where you can pick up some merch with our cool shit on it. We recently got a picture of Critty appearing at Disneyland Japan, I think.
In Japan, yeah.
Yeah,
great.
Which is just awesome. Amazing and humbling.
Yeah.
And if you want to follow along with the show notes will be available on at encounterthis.ca. That'll never change. That will just bring you directly to the Encounter This page of the Uncharted North website. If you are an audio listener, please rate and review on your platform of choice. And if you're a YouTube listener, please like and subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified of new and upcoming episodes. They will be in your feed every other Thursday until we die or get bored. Which we have a lot of game to cover, so there's a lot more coming. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do none of that, but still help us out, just tell a friend. Honestly, that helps us out more than you could ever imagine. More people, more ears, more likes, more popularity. Maybe we'll get to do this full time, and maybe this will be a weekly show where 1 week is this episode, and then the week after is us running against that creature. We'll bring Cam into the fold or Duncan or something like that. So our second episode is just us playing against the Skulltaker. I think
awesome.
That'll be a really cool idea. Yeah, but that is not a small Patreon goal. But so head on over there. That is Uncharted North, or patreon.com/Uncharted North. Yeah.
But it sounds so fun. We'd have to fight first and then cover the creature, but release them in reverse order.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would really help inform the episodes in a way that I don't think we just have currently.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, we have lots of ideas. We really want to do this full time. So, I mean, even $1 a month helps us get a step closer. Like, it is crazy how quickly $5 or $1 or $5 or $2.50 can add up. But do not give us any more than you can afford to give away, because you got to pay yourself first, and we appreciate you. So we do not want to take your money if you can't afford it. Be good to yourselves. Yeah. That being said, yourselves right. If you want to be good to us, we have a $25 tier where you get to pick where you get to create an NPC for our flagship show. So maybe treat yourself that way from time to time.
Actually, it's lower than that. It's lower than that. It's
what?
15.
What? Yeah. Why is it lower than that? At the time of recording this, it's lower than that at $15 a month. But it will not stay at the $15 tier forever.
The reason it's lower is because I have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. He's willing to do it for less money.
It is super fun.
But I guarantee you it will not stay at that tier forever. Like that is so
Get
much
while
work.
You can.
Yeah. Discounted price. But thank you so much for listening, and we will be back in 2 weeks with whatever episode we have coming up next. I actually don't know offhand.
Me neither. We got a lot on the go.
Yeah, it might even be our next suite.
Fun.
Well,
thanks for tuning
creatures.
in, listeners, and we'll see you on the other side. Until next time, creatures, thanks, as always, for listening to Encounter This.